Hi everybody, this is Warren Herman, and today I want to speak to you about a few different principles that I think can be helpful in discerning what God wants you to do with your life. In the movie Star Wars, there is a famous plot twist that I won't give away in case you haven't seen it, but Darth Vader makes the comment to Luke Skywalker. He says, "Search your feelings, you know it to be true." And Luke has to obviously search his feelings to determine whether what Darth Vader is saying is actually accurate. So, is this a proper way of figuring out the truth? It's very interesting because this method of searching our feelings to know whether something is true is actually something that you'll find in the spiritual kind of discernment that is done in the Mormon church. So, for example, when somebody is encouraged to try to figure out whether the Book of Mormon is true, the Mormon missionaries will ask the person who is who is kind of interacting with them, to pray about the text and to see if they experience a kind of spiritual feeling, a kind of burning feeling, often inside themselves, that will confirm to them that the Spirit is revealing to them that the Book of Mormon is actually true. The interesting thing about this is that many people who do this type of practice do get a feeling and therefore become Mormon. The question is this a reason to make a decision about whether something is true? The thing is, there are many things that can give us a positive feeling, and they may not necessarily be true. I may get a very positive feeling if I see a certain person, but it doesn't mean that if I get this very positive feeling, or even this seemingly spiritual feeling, that means I'm going to marry that person because I have that. Is that true? And so then I might be confused. How could I be having this feeling if it's not giving me accurate guidance? And then if we build our faith or our lives, our relationships, and also our spiritual decisions upon feelings like this, then we can set ourselves up for disappointment and even for losing our faith, because we have put our faith in something that is not necessarily fully an accurate barometer of what is true. The fact that you feel something just means that you felt something. It might not mean any other thing. It could mean many other things, but it certainly should not be the way that we use as a barometer for what is actually true. So why is this what does this have to do with our discernment? Obviously, this is talking about discerning whether this thing is true, but the same thing can happen when we're trying to discern our vocation. We could say, I had this feeling while I'm in church, that means I'm meant to be a priest. I had this feeling about this, it means that. It means I feel this about this community and that about this community. There are ways in which we should be able to, our feelings could correspond to our evaluations of things. But really the thing is, we want to make sure, I think, that we have an ordered way of approaching our life experience. The interesting thing is that the Mormon church is a church that is essentially, if we think about the progression of history, you have the Catholic Church, in which the faculties, I believe, are ordered properly. And this is a thing I'd like to explain a little bit more, because we could see the practical application of some very important principles here that could also bring out some other ideas that I think can be beneficial to share. So, for example, in some of my other videos, I talk about that there's kind of a structure to truth. For example, and we could see this it played out in history, and we could see this played out in the human person, that the way that different denominations, you can kind of map out different religions, spiritualities, philosophies, denominations onto a map of like how the human person works. And you can see how in history, you see the Catholic Church, you have everything, all the faculties of the human mind are being used properly. Then you have Protestantism kind of split off, and you see things like the will being overemphasized with the radical Reformation in terms of like the Mennonites, the Anabaptists. So it's all about what you do. Then you see the intellect being overemphasized in like the Lutherans, the Calvinists, those type of things, because it's all about what you think, rather than this kind of heart type thing that's going on with sacraments and Catholicism. say prayer and sacrament is what's going on with Catholics in the heart, and then you have this kind of fixation on the intellect and the will in Protestantism. And then as time goes by, as it becomes, as there's kind of this felt inadequacy in Protestantism, there's this need then that you try to turn even further along to experience. And that's why, things like Mormonism are more on that level of experience rather than the intellect and the will, or the sacraments and the heart. It's like, so you see that this type of religion is, I like Mormons. I like learning about Mormons. I like, there's many different things that are kind of very good things that they'll say and do in various ways. But in general, it's kind of mapped onto this territory where you have this emphasis on experience. You can see this is why, you have Joseph Smith as the founder of Mormonism. He has an experience which kind of allows him to restore the church, so to speak. But I don't believe that that's the case, because I think that this is a disordered process falling down through these levels of human anthropology, human functioning, and so on and so forth. Now, obviously, when we are trying to say, okay, I should marry her because I had this feeling about it, we're not trying to be Mormon, but we are obviously using our faculties in a similar way. We're putting our experience before our intellect, will, and heart. So the thing is, we have to realize this kind of putting things out of order in our discernment can lead us to a sense of confusion, and can lead us to lose our faith because things are being put together backwards, and can lead us to be really confused about what's true. So the thing is, we don't want to use this kind of thing. We want to kind of understand, like, okay, we want to use faith and reason to determine what to do with our lives. We don't want to necessarily only use experiences and feelings to do this, because if we do, we're going to kind of start disorienting ourselves. So ultimately, we want to understand that there is this need to kind of go against the advice of Darth Vader. We don't want to search our feelings and we will know it to be true. Instead, we want to pursue what is true and good and beautiful, and our feelings will eventually follow. And sometimes they won't. Sometimes our feelings will sometimes we'll feel like it. Sometimes we won't. There's an old advertisement for a certain candy, which with some of the types of candies had nuts in them and some of them didn't. And the little jingle was, sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't. And so the thing is, our feelings go back and forth. We don't want to search our feelings to know whether something is true. We want to pursue our lives in an ordered way, and we want to understand these things so we can make good and healthy choices that affirm our faith and put our choices and decisions on solid ground. So I hope this is helpful to you today and is beneficial to you in your process of discernment. And again, I like Mormons. I just, but there's a reason why I'm Catholic, and it has to do with my understanding of the human person. And I feel like there's, a lot of different dialogue we can have with Mormons about these different subjects of how we discern. And there's different ways there's things that we can learn from each other. But again, I'm a Catholic. I think there are things that are not in order in that tradition. And I think that there's things that we all need to bring into order in our lives so that we can better see what God wants us to do, be the people God wants us to be, and order our whole lives toward His glory and toward the salvation and sanctification of souls.